Hello everyone, welcome to our channel I Teach. This is going our quick revision series of modern India, and in the previous lectures we have covered several topics like advent of the Europeans, then decline of the Mughals, and something about Marathas. Then we talked about Carnatic Wars, Mysore, Punjab, annexation of Bengal, then further moved and talked about revolt of 1857. And now in this lecture I will cover an important topic, that's economic policies of British. Economic policies of British. In this there are several topics which includes agriculture policies or industrial policies or trade and tariff policies. But in this very chapter I will try to focus on the agriculture policies. As we know that the ideologies and philosophies play a great role in the policies of the government. In the same way, British administration, we can see the economic policies has certain impacts of philosophies and ideologies. For example, in 1215, King John granted few rights to feudal lords. That was Magna Carta, and the two main principles developed. That's no taxation without the consent of people, and no one can be denied individual liberty, and one cannot be arrested without giving out valid reason. Around 16th century, the middle class demanded concessions, but the rights were extended to common men only in 19th century. Women rights extended in England only in 1920s. Development of parliamentary form of government, negotiations between the crown and middle class, basically based on the principle of liberalism. The theory of liberalism was founded or developed by John Locke, and it remained essence of the British polity for about 200 years. He talked about the civil society. According to him, civil society to be granted to certain basic rights, right to rule of law, government to lay down certain rights to the common man, right to equality before law. It was implemented in Britain in due course of time. By late 18th 19th century, England's first phase to be affected by industrial revolution and vast changes in socio-economic, political and demographics. Therefore, the three offshoots of liberalism emerged. One was laissez-faireism or free trade policy, developed by Adam Smith. Classical economic theory, which was given by Malthus and Ricardo. Another offshoot branch of liberalism was utilitarianism or Benthamianism, which is based on the principle maximum happiness to maximum number of people. And the third offshoot was evangelicalism, related to religion. William Wilberforce, main spokesperson in British Parliament. Charles Grant influenced policies of Christian missionaries in India. So the impact of these three can be seen in various economic policies or other social policies of Britishers from time to time. For example, laissez-faireism. The principle of laissez-faireism could be seen in the third phase of Britishers' economic policy, that is one-way free trade, which is visible in mercantilism, state influence or intervention in economy of the state. No monopoly of few in initial phase of industrial evolution. The middle class believed in open market competition. Thus, mercantilism sidelined by laissez-faireism. Mercantilism was in the second phase of economic policies of British, in which direct plunder took place, which is based on the doctrine of state intervention in the economic life of the people. As the monopoly of trade was already established through military and political control, that subsidiary alliance treaty, which was signed by the different princely states according to the Wellesley, who was the Governor General. Utilitarianism was based on the idea of utility. Every step of the state should oversee the impact of the people. Act should be to bring happiness to maximum population. Here, it is believed that state should play a proactive role, and evangelism for the spread of Christianity. Apart from profit, spread of Christianity was another motive of Britishers. The Britishers were very cautious in their support of missionaries. So, if we see that the phases of economic policies could be divided into three. First phase is from 1600 to 1757, in which they came as a trading corporation or traders. In the second phase is mercantilism, as I have already explained this theory, and it's visible in the economic policies of the British. This phase was the direct plunder. Huge exploitation and wealth was taken from the India to the Britain. In the third phase, this was a phase of one-way free trade, and it was based on the principle of laissez-faireism, free trade policy. And in 1860 to 1947, financial imperialism could be seen in the economic policies of the Britishers. In 1900 to 1947, India became financial capital. As I have talked, or said that in this lecture I will deal with the land revenue system or agriculture policies. So land revenue system, there were three main land revenue systems which were developed by the Britishers in different regions. First was the permanent settlement that was applied by the Lord Cornwallis in the year 1793, and it was applicable to the provinces of Bengal, Bihar and Orissa. In its settlement accounted for 19% of the total cultivable area, and its important features were that it created the class of new landlords or zamindars who were very exploitative nature of the peasants, and they revolted in the 1857 against the Britishers, and they were the middlemen for collecting the revenue in between the peasants and the Britishers. And apart from this, 89% of the total land revenue to the state, and the remaining 11% were kept with the zamindar for his expenses. This was known as sunset clause, as the revenue has to be given to the Britishers on a fixed date. The next important settlement was the Rayotwari Settlement. This settlement was started by Reed and Munro in the year 1820. It started in the provinces of Bombay and Madras, and its settlement accounted for 51% of the total cultivable area. Its important features were the settlement was made directly with the peasants, and the land revenue demand was exorbitantly high, and in even cases of the natural calamities, the peasants were forced to pay land revenue by selling or mortgaging the land. So this process of selling and mortgaging the land led to land becoming a commodity which could be sold or bought, and it led to breakup of social structure in villages because land was not a commodity. Since ancient times, it was considered a sacred. The next important land revenue system was the Mahalvari System, and this system was started by Mackenzie in the year 1822. It was applicable to the Middle Gangetic Plains, Northwest Frontier Province and Punjab, and this system accounted for 30% of the total applicable area. Its important features were several villages were clubbed together and one representative was selected from collective group of villages. This head was responsible to collect the land revenue from the villages and submit to the British authorities. Now let's discuss the consequences of these economic policies over the peasants. The majority of the consequences are negative and only one or two are positive. Negative consequences includes impoverishment of the peasantry, recurring famines, heavy toll of life, commercialization of agriculture, that substitution of commercial crops for food grains, fodder and other crops that proved disastrous and resulted in famines. Earlier there were natural calamities like floods, droughts and etc., but the famine was not frequent, and after the Britishers, famine became a regular phenomenon and large scale starvation death was a very recurrent phenomena. And further, the negative consequences include the over dependence of peasants on merchants. It led to their snatching of their lands and huge debt burden, and further uncertainties of international price situations and growth of Indian laborers and rural indebtedness. And only one positive is its emergence of active trade in agricultural produce. Now let's talk about something about famine and famine commission, which are the active steps which were taken by the Britishers in this regard. The nature, what was the nature of famine? It began in Bengal in 1770 and ended with Bengal famine of 1943. Majority of the famines were in North India. After 1850, large reduction in supply of food grains and fodder. In the mid 19th century, it became a frequent and common phenomena of famine, and it led to the huge large destruction and deaths of the peasants. And what were the causes? The recurrent failure of the monsoon from one of the main reason of the famine, and next was neglect of irrigation works by the Britishers initially. Only some steps were taken after the 1920. Absence of alternative occupations in villages and general poverty and practical absence of saving. Now these are the steps or committees or commissions which were formed by the Britishers to study the reasons and suggest suitable measures. First was in 1867, Campbell Committee was formed to inquire famine of North India. In the 1876-78 famine occurred in North India, and the first famine commission of India. It's an important question mark. It first famine commission India was under Strachey in 1876 to 78. and in 1896-97 second famine commission was under Lal Commission. The name of the commission was Lal Commission, and the third famine commission came from 1819 to 1900. It was under MacDonald Commission, and finally after the Bengal famine of 1943, in 1944 Woodhead Commission was formed. So this completes our chapter. Thank you.